Hello, I'm Dr. Angie McCartney.
And I'm Ruth McCartney.
Welcome to TeaFlix,
where each episode's intimate conversation features a fascinating guest across the spectrum of Beatles world, pop culture, Grammy winners, the music industry, chefs, producers, music stars, actors, and more. So bottoms up and join us as they spill the tea on TeaFlix. And it says we are live. Once
jolly
again,
good. Off we go then.
Off we jolly will go. Happy Mardi Gras Fat Tuesday. Happy Chinese Lunar New Year of the Fire Horse, which comes around once every 60 years. And the beginning of Ramadan for those who celebrate.
Yeah.
What's most special about today's, the 17th of February this year, is that we are, truly just gobsmacked and honored to have, alphabetically speaking, Rod Argent and Colin Blunstone of the Zombies joining us. They are an influential rock band, often mistakenly described as a duo due to the prominence of their two principal members. It formed in 1961. Well, some places say 61, some places say 62. So we'll find out. In St Albans, the group became one of the most distinctive and sophisticated voices of the British invasion. Blending jazz-inflected chord structures, baroque pop textures, and ethereal vocals, they achieved early international success with hits like She's Not There and later the timeless classic Time of the Season. Their 1968 album Odessey and Oracle, and we'll talk about that, notable for its unique spelling, has since been hailed as one of the greatest pop albums of all time, and I would agree. Admired for its lush harmonies, inventive melodies, and introspective songwriting. Although the band initially disbanded shortly after recording Odessey and Oracle, their music enjoyed a major resurgence in the late 60s when Time of the Season became a surprise US hit. Over subsequent decades, the Zombies reunited in various lineups led by Blunstone and Argent, continuing to tour and record new material whilst earning a revered place in rock history. After they first disbanded, Colin quietly reinvented himself as one of Britain's most distinctive solo vocalists. His 1971 album, 1 Year, revealed a more intimate orchestral sound, highlighted by the timeless hit by our dear departed friend Denny Laine, written by Say You Don't Mind. Rather than chasing trends, Colin carved out a career defined by elegance, emotional subtlety, and that unmistakable breath-soft tenor. Following the Zombies, Rod Argent stepped boldly into a new chapter by forming the progressive rock band Argent, embracing a heavier, more expansive musical direction. As a keyboardist, composer, producer, and bandleader, Rod helped shape ambitious records of the early 70s, including the enduring anthem, Hold Your Head Up. His solo and production work showcased not only his virtuosity on keys, but also his instinct for melody and structure. In recognition of their lasting impact on popular music, the Zombies were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2019, cementing their legacy as pioneers of melodic harmony-rich British rock. In 2023, they released their album, A Different Game. And if you haven't already, run, don't walk to Amazon Prime and watch their fascinating documentary, which is on repeat in this household, called Hung Up on a Dream, with absolute extreme pleasure. And again, alphabetically, please welcome Rod Argent and Colin Blunstone. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
Oh.
Great to be here.
Did you realize you'd done all that? Are you tired now?
Well, yeah, but no,
I'm
we
exhausted.
did.
I'm exhausted. That was a 70 years career in 1.5 minutes. It was enjoyable, but
it's amazing. So, was it 61 or 62 that the band, before it was called the Zombies, was officially formed?
Well, we're not sure, are we, Colin? I mean, because we always thought it was 61, but in fact, during the very first rehearsal, I actually went over to the piano and played something called Nut Rocker by B. Bumble and the Stingers. And that was Colin's the first time he'd ever heard me play. And I've since learned that wasn't released until 62, or at least that was the story. So we're a little bit confused, actually, to be quite honest, because we always thought it was 61, but it could have been 62.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Rod, take us back to St Albans in the early 60s and how your mum and your cousin, Jim Redford, supported your musical ambitions. And wasn't Jim Redford connected with the Kinks eventually?
He was, yeah, he was in the Kinks, but he was in one of the first electric bands to play in England, actually. he was 4 years older than me, and he was a bit of a mentor.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but I actually had a stroke about a
that's
year and a half ago.
It's quite all right. No
Bless
worries. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, well,
Sometimes.
Rod, he was a mentor to you, wasn't he? And he started a skiffle band first of all. Then he had a rock and roll band, and you went to see the rock and roll band. I'm just filling in a bits here. You went to see him play his rock and roll band, and then you decided you wanted to have a rock and roll band of your own, and that's kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, he actually played. I loved music. I loved classical music, but I also loved the Miles Davis jazz group of about 58 before A Kind of Blue, and I just love music. But Jim was playing me some records, and he played me. He was already in a band. He played me some Bill Haley, and I thought, well, yeah, it's okay, you know, but it doesn't really knock me out. And he said, well, this has just come through. Have a listen to this. And he played Elvis singing Hound Dog. And my world spun around. It really did. And I just wanted, to my parents' horror, I wanted for sort of a few months only to hear people like Little Richard, you know, Elvis, the very early rockers that came out.
Yeah.
Absolutely blown away with all this. And then very soon I got involved with a lot of black music because of the way Elvis used to source black music in those days. It was Big Mama Thornton that actually did the original of That's All Right Mama, which was his first record. And then very soon I got to listen to all the wonderful early records that Elvis had. Who were the writers? Oh God.
Oh gosh, yeah, I know who you mean. It escapes me. But yeah. I mean, it was that real sort of four on the floor rock and roll, but it had that Southern Memphis, American twist, didn't it? And Colin, you were a big fan of Ricky Nelson. Matthew and Gunnar are friends of ours. They're his twin sons. So Ricky was a big influence on you in the early days, wasn't he?
He absolutely was. And we met the twins. In fact, I've met them twice on two of the cruises that we've done. And I explained to them that, I mean, my first influence was much the same as Rod, Elvis, Chuck Berry, Little Richard. But there was a sort of, all of these people are American, incidentally. There was a sort of a second wave of influence for me. And Ricky Nelson was right at the top of that. I was a huge fan of Ricky Nelson. And, you know, we had a first rehearsal. Rod can go back and explain how he put the band together because it was Rod's idea. But at the end of the first rehearsal, we'd only played one instrumental. And as Rod was going to be the lead singer, Rod hadn't really done much because we played an instrumental. Anyway, in a coffee break, he went over and played an old broken down piano in the corner of the rehearsal room. And he played Nut Rocker by B. Bumble and the Singers, as he just said. And I said to him, no, I didn't even know his name. I've only just met him. I just said, you know, well, whoever you are, mate, you should be in this band. We're hopeless compared to you. We're hopeless. And said, no, we want all guitars. It's a rock band. It's got to be all guitars. And that was the end. You know, that was the end of it. No negotiations there. And at the end of rehearsals, I was just putting my guitar away. I was a rhythm guitarist. I thought I was going to stand at the back looking at my shoes because I was a bit shy. I thought being on a stage, I couldn't be in the middle at the front. And I sang a Ricky Nelson song to myself. I was always singing. And I sang, I think it was It's Late. And Rod heard me. And he said, I'll tell you what, whoever you are, because you didn't know my name either. He said, I'll tell you what, if you'll be the lead singer, I'll be the keyboard player. And essentially, that's how the Zombies came together. Rod was supposed to be the singer. Yeah, we just moved around a chair. And that was either in 61 or 62, which we're not sure. And it stayed the same after that. So my audition piece was a Ricky Nelson song. So I was very fortunate to have been a fan of Nelson. He played a huge part in my musical life when I was younger.
I bet the twins loved hearing that story. Did you have a chance to tell them?
I'm pretty sure I did. I'm not sure if I went into so much detail as that, but I did tell them I was a huge fan. I think I did tell them that story. Yeah.
I'll make sure they see it. I'll text them this.
Oh, great.
Link.
Yeah.
They're done. Absolutely.
Yeah, Rod, what was your first impression of Colin when you and Paul Atkinson first met him? Was it at the Blacksmith Arms, I read somewhere?
My
And his
first
face
impression.
covered in bandages after a rugby
my God.
altercation.
Well, Jim, the aforementioned Jim Rodford, gave me a lift because I was 15, wasn't I, Carl? I think 15.
Yeah, we were both 15.
And we'd agreed to meet outside this pub, and we were too young to go in the pub. And Jim had he'd loaned us all the Blue Tones gear, which we never had anything like that gear for several months, afterwards. But when Colin actually sang, I was completely blown away.
Oh.
And I thought it was marvelous, but I thought he looked terrible because he had two black eyes, because he was quite an athlete and quite a rugby player at that time. And he'd had an injury to his eyes, and these two black eyes and plasters all over his cheeks. I thought, I don't know if we can actually handle having someone like this.
Yeah.
I look like a zombie, Rod. I look like a zombie.
You did.
A real zombie.
I was just ahead of my time.
I'd
broken my nose on a Wednesday, and I went flat. It was nearly in my ear, and I managed to strap it back roughly down the middle of my face, and I had two black eyes and white plasters all across my face, and that's when I met Rod.
God, I mean, how the name The Zombies didn't come to you immediately is kind of a mystery.
Well, there were no real zombie films at the time. I mean, Night of the Living Dead didn't come out till 1967.
Yeah.
But Paul Arnold, the only guy who left the band, everyone else was original still. He came up with that name, and I loved it. I knew what a zombie was, but I don't think Colin even knew what a zombie was.
I did. I still don't.
You had a couple of other names. You were the Mustangs for about a week, weren't you?
Oh yeah,
we were. Yes. And then we were the Sundowners.
The Sundowners.
And that was my idea, and I do apologise because it's absolutely bloody awful. But it was a film with Robert Mitchum and Deborah Kerr called The Sun.
Yeah.
And the Searchers had just taken on a film title from John Wayne. So we thought it might be a good idea to try film titles, and we went for the Sundowners, but I'm afraid it only lasted a few days. And then Paul Arnold, as Rod said, just came up with the idea. Where it came from, I don't know, the Zombies. And I was never keen because I didn't know what a zombie was, but it was catchy and it stuck and everyone else liked it. And so we stayed with it and we became the Zombies.
Great name.
Yeah, the Sundowners sounds like some kind of happy hour at an old people's home, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
Probably be more appropriate for us now, wouldn't it, than then?
Oh, don't ask Ange. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Elizabeth's just saying she was fortunate enough to see you with Brian Wilson at the Beacon Theatre in New York.
I remember
when
that.
You came around again. Would have been a great night. Sorry, I missed that one. So back in those early days, you mentioned in the documentary something about, it was enough for bus fare. You got £6, £5 went back into buying equipment, and a pound for your joint bus fare. So I'm left scratching my head thinking, well, if you're all taking the bus, how
did you get your stuff?
How did you get a drum kit on a bus? How did you schlep your gear to the gigs?
When you're on a double-decker bus, they used to have a little thing for luggage as you got on. So everything went in there, on our laps, until we started getting transport. Hugh Grundy, our drummer, got a Lambretta scooter, and he used to get his drum kit, me and my guitar on his Lambretta scooter. And then we travelled in a very deluxe way. You can imagine what that looked like: a drum kit and a guitar and 2 blokes on a scooter.
Wow.
So that's when we progressed from the bus. We started improvising like that.
Time.
I mean, you know, we were 15 and 16 years old. It was all just a wonderful adventure, really.
Yes.
Yeah, nowadays, you similar things that you see on Instagram are people on scooters, like with a mattress on their heads or something like that. Scooters,
Yeah.
yes, scooters.
I have to say that Colin was a very fast athlete at the time. He was with 100 yards. You were what, top 10 in the country, Colin?
Or something like that, yeah. It came in handy at some of the gigs, actually. You know, any trouble, I was on the bike, mate.
Oh, that's
that is
lovely.
wild.
Yeah. So, Colin, you guys won the heartbeat competition, didn't you, at Watford Town Hall out of
We did.
100 bands, I think. What was the prize? What did you win?
We all remember it differently, but as you've asked me the question, I'll answer it as I remember it.
Yeah.
I think we won £250.
Oh my goodness.
It was quite a lot of money in those days. Yeah, we were rich. And you know, bands came from all over the country. So we weren't expecting in any way to win it, but we won the first heat. It was on a Sunday night. And then there were other heats. I think there were 10 bands a night. And at the end of it all, we went into the final and we actually won it. I remember that we won £250, but it led indirectly to a contract with Decca Records. We were introduced to a producer called Ken Jones.
Yep.
I think he helped to get us the deal at Decca Records. We went in and, you know, we can tell you the story of the first recording session, if you like. And we recorded She's Not There. And our lives were never the same. It changed everything in an instant. Although we'd already said we wanted to be a professional band. But we didn't have any idea. We had no gigs, no agent, no manager, no truck, nothing. But we decided we wanted to be a professional band. And this competition came along and we got a deal, and our first record, it's a bit of a dream, really, this. And our first record was a worldwide, if not number one, close to number one.
Right.
And the first session, it nearly didn't happen. I just say, Rod, that we turned up and the session had been booked in the evening because it was thought to be more arty to record through the night. Personally, I fall asleep about 9 o'clock, so I probably missed most of it. But we arrived and the engineer had been at a wedding all day because it was 7 o'clock in the evening when we started. The engineer had been at a wedding all day, blind, absolutely blind drunk, completely drunk. And very aggressive. And it makes me laugh when I think we've been in this business for 60-something years. And I thought within about 20 seconds of being in the studio, this is not for me. Because we put on the headphones. This guy's screaming obscenities down the headphones at us. Really, really loud, very, very aggressive. And I thought, I don't think I'm enjoying this very much. But then we had a bit of luck and he passed out. And we passed out. We carried him out of the studio, up 2 flights of stairs, put him in a London black taxi cab, and none of us ever saw him again. But his assistant took over.
You will
His
tomorrow.
assistant took over. Actually, he was a very good engineer. I mean, he just had an off day. And we learned later that he was very, very good. But his assistant took over, and his assistant was Gus Dudgeon, who went on to produce all of Elton's early stuff, David Bowie, Kiki D, many, many huge artists. And that was Gus Dudgeon's first session ever. And it was our first session ever. And he's no longer with us. But he never forgot that his first session was with the Zombies. So it was strange the way things worked out. The session nearly disintegrated with this guy being so drunk. But somehow it came together, and the record was number one in Cashbox. You know, sort of 14 in the UK or something. So it was a huge hit.
Well, how do you remember that, Rod?
Well, very similar, because the guy was screaming at us and shouting at us, because he was drunk. I mean, he was obviously a very good engineer.
When sober.
When he wasn't drunk. Yes. He'd gone to this wedding. But it basically, that was the first song I ever wrote, was She's Not There. And because Ken Jones, our producer, had said, well, you could always write something yourself. And Chris went away and wrote the song, and I went away and wrote "She's Not There," and you know, and with the with the excitement of youth, you know, and you don't know any of the problems that can go wrong in the recording studio. You know, and how fantastic it has to be that you get a great sound. You know, I thought Colin will sing it brilliantly. We'll get a great sound, of course. You know, that went without saying in my mind.
Right.
But yeah, so and it did, and it turned out really beautifully.
And where did the and the snap, the extra sort of the breathy
that was on Time of the Season.
That's right. That
actually came because we only had well, I mean, this is another story altogether, but Chris and I desperately by that time we got really embarrassed about how some of our records were sounding, and we didn't feel that they were being produced in the right way. So we wanted to really make a record ourselves, and we didn't know if we could produce the record, but we wanted to make an album and at least have our own ideas of how the songs should sound. And that's what we did. But we only had a very small amount of money. We had £1,000 to make the album, and even in those days, Abbey Road, we went into Abbey Road. That was not very much money at all. So we had basically 3 hours to do each session, and you know, and that came about because Jeff Emmerich,
love Jeff,
who was a wonderful producer. He was really great engineer. Sorry, and he got this magical bass and tom-tom sound, and I don't quite know if you listen to it, it sounds like a bass and a tom-tom, but it was just really magical. And when we put this down, I said to Hugh, do you know, Hugh, because in those days, at the beginning, we just had boom, 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 just an offbeat, just a backbeat. But I said, do you know what? I can hear a clap before the snare. So boom, 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 and a vocal afterwards. I said, can you just, we've just about got time. Can you go in there and do it? And he said, well, you do it. And I said, no, come on, you do it, Hugh. He said, no, it's your idea, you do it. So we had one pass with me doing it. Wow. And I didn't think any more about it. I mean, that was, but it became quite
iconic.
Quite iconic, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the time you were doing it and going clapping, and you probably thought it was like adding triangle to something, and it might make the mix and it might not. But I mean, in those days, you guys only had 4 tracks?
Yes, we only had 4 tracks. But brilliantly, the Beatles had gone in and they'd heard Brian Wilson do Pet Sounds, and John Lennon said, he said we have to have an 8-track, and they said, well, there's not one in the country, and John said, well, go and sort it out.
I'm going down the pub.
I'm going to the pub.
Jeff Emmerich actually told us that same story once upon a time.
Oh, did he? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. And
so we inherited that, Rod, didn't we? Because the Beatles had just finished Sgt. Pepper about 2 days before we went into the studio, and we inherited their setup. So for the first time ever, we could use extra tracks. We had been recording on 4-track until then. I think actually we were recording on 7-track because they'd put 2 4-tracks together, and in doing that, you lost, I don't know the technical thing behind it.
Yeah,
but lot
Yeah.
one track. So we had 7 tracks, which enabled Rod to go in and go, otherwise you wouldn't have had at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because the way Jeff Emmerich told it to us was they were doing Sgt. Pepper and John, and, you know, they all had all these mad ideas. And they said, well, you know, we need more tracks. We're going down the pub. Send a runner down when you figured out how do we get 8 or 6.
Absolutely.
They just buggered off to the pub. And it was Jeff's problem, you know, stood there in his, probably still wearing the little white coat before he got the check shirt thing, to just figure it out. But what an incredible brain to say, well, we can mix these together and bounce them onto one track and then go back and erase the other tracks. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you got to use the Mellotron that was on Sgt. Pepper too, didn't you?
Yeah, because they'd left a Mellotron in the studio, or at least we thought that they did. But for whatever reason, the Mellotron was there. And I thought, oh, great. We can't afford an orchestra. So, you know, we can use this as a deputizing it, you know, if that's the right one. I can't think of the word. But in fact, it had, as you know, very much its own sound. And it was much better than certainly the orchestras were at the time, because they, all the orchestral musicians didn't really understand rock and roll music, or didn't like it. I mean, they do now. I mean, it's, you know, they're absolutely marvelous now, because they're involved in all sorts of music. But you know, we were speaking to Jeff just a week before he died, and we did a concert in with Arcade Fire in
the Greek Theatre in Los Angeles.
The Greek Theatre, yeah. And I had a really long conversation with Jeff, and he said, look, we must do something else together again. And he said, I'm not just saying that. He said, will you promise me that when you get back in a week's time, you'll give me a call and we'll set it up. And then a week later, he was dead.
Yeah, no, he had ticker problems and he had a lot of stress in his life, and there's the whole backstory to that's not so pretty, unfortunately. But he worked right up until the end. In fact, we worked with him at East West Studios in Studio 3, where they actually cut Pet Sounds, funnily enough, with one of our artists that we do all the digital stuff for, a great artist called Nick Marischal. And he came in for lunch and to listen to Nick. And he just, the young engineer was like, I can't believe Jeff Emmerich's standing behind me, you know. And he pulled this kid's chair back, because they're all on wheels, you know. He pulled this kid's chair back from the desk about 18 or 20 inches. He said, listen to it from there. Tell me what's different. Because if you get too close to a mix and you know, and this kid's mind was absolutely blown, you know, Jeff Emmerich giving him engineering tips. He was such a lovely man. And then we went to LAFX Studios, and he did some remixing for Nick and for one of our projects. He's such a gentleman. Really, really.
He was lovely.
Really, really lovely man. And so talented and so humble.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
When you think about all of the things that he actually invented, if he'd been able to get patents on them, good grief.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah, but yeah, Mark Lindsay, our friend from Houston, saying the connections between all of these bands is amazing. Well, Mark, you know, when you work in a lot of these studios, you people are loading gear in and loading gear out, and you're on tours and stuff together. What I wanted to go back and touch on is back in the day, you said, you know, you had no work and no management, but back in the first incarnation of the Zombies, you signed with Tito Burns for management. And then that propelled you to working with other big stars of the day, right? I mean, you got on tours and on Jukebox Jury, where George Harrison said, you know, your song was a hit and so on. That must have been an absolute eye-opener, going across not just the UK, but the US on tour buses and, you know, singing gospel spirituals with the modern heroes of the day. And tell us a couple of those little stories.
Oh, I mean, we only slept in a hotel every other night.
Oh, lovely.
And
this is on the first American tour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Clark Carrier stars.
Yeah. Yes. And some of the black acts on the tour, particularly, weren't making very much money, and actually we weren't making very much money, but Tito certainly was.
Yeah.
And he was making a fortune, and we were playing to huge places. In fact, oh God.
Yeah, I mean, you had people. You were on stages with people like Patti LaBelle, and you were introduced to Nina Simone and Aretha Franklin, and it must have been mind blowing.
It
was incredible because we'd gone from being semi-pro amateurs in and around St Albans in July 1964, and on Christmas Day 1964 we opened at the Brooklyn Fox, and with Patti LaBelle, the Shangri-Las, Benny King, so many wonderful artists, and it's a big jump. It's a big jump.
Yeah.
And we used to have to follow Patti LaBelle. She brought the house down. At the time, it was Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. They brought the house down in every show. It's like 8 shows a day, and then the audience was supposed to leave, but often they stayed in anyway. So it just went on all day. And she would bring the house down in every show, and then us skinny little boys from Hertfordshire were quivering in the wings, and we had to follow her. But we got away with it, people.
And she became a real friend, didn't she, Cole?
She did. At the time, she was very, very supportive. It was interesting. Being Christmas, it meant everyone was away from their families over Christmas.
Yeah.
So there was a great camaraderie backstage. Obviously, we were away from our families that Christmas, but it was a great experience. That was our first time playing in America. And then later on, we did the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars, which Rob was just talking about. And that was with Del Shannon at Shangri-Las again. And I don't remember all the other acts, but we were sleeping on the bus every second night. So we only had a hotel every second night. So it did get very tiring. And then in the nights when we stayed on the bus, there were these wonderful singers on that tour. They used to be singing spirituals and other music as well, and we loved it. And then 2 or 3 nights out, do you want to say what happened, Rod? Or shall I? Because it's your story.
What was the story?
They said, "Okay, you guys, you sing something." We were just in awe. We were in awe of them. We just thought they were so wonderful.
We had nothing to sing, did we, Cole?
No, our church music was a bit limited.
So I said to Cole, "I'll tell you what, let's just sing a Beatles song. Let's sing If I Fell." And he said, "Oh God, all right." So a cappella, we sang it in harmony.
Wow.
And at the end of it, they all applauded. All the black guys, and from that day onwards, we were totally accepted. So that was lovely.
I thought that was very brave of us, because there was one night we had a night off in Blackpool, and we were walking along the front, and we saw 2 quite attractive girls walking in front. Well, we thought they looked attractive from the back. I don't know what they looked like from the front. And we went up behind them, and we thought, they're going to love this. They're going to love this. We sang If I Fell all the way through to them. They turned around and looked at us and ran off at 100 miles an hour. So it hadn't proved a huge success the first time that we sang If I Fell, but we got away with it the second time. We were accepted, as Rod said, when we sang it on the bus.
It's not the easiest song to sing from the minor to the major to the major to the minor, is it? I mean, good grief.
It's not really. Rod's a great harmony singer, and I think the harmony really makes that song. He was in the St Albans Cathedral Choir for 10 years or something, Rod. And on top of that, being a pianist, he understands harmonies, and that's when it comes on a song like that. But I mean, he can build up choirs just with his own voice. He's a great harmony singer.
That's no, well, we know that from not just from the Zombies, but from Argent and the arrangements and all the production stuff you've done. Winding back to England, to Britain, just so the audience knows, we used to have a show in the 60s called Jukebox Jury with our fearless host David Jacobs, and basically it was the lowest production value show you'd ever see. They'd have 4 celebrities and David, and they would play a song on the jukebox, and then the celebrities would say hit or miss. Basically, I mean, the production value was less than zero, but
Yeah.
there was that.
There was a fateful night, though, wasn't there, on British TV? And George Harrison just happened to give a thumbs up to you guys singing She's Not There. And how quickly it all changed then, eh?
Wow.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was like someone from, Mount Parnassus or something, coming down and actually saying that. I mean,
Yeah.
oh, it was wonderful. Yeah.
And, the Beatles connection keeps winding through, doesn't it, with Jeff Emerick, George Harrison, this, that, the other. And you guys were the first band after the Beatles to get to number one with a self-written song, because everyone was doing Tin Pan Alley covers, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. And I know that we were the first because I phoned home when we were in the States. And that was in the days when it was really difficult to phone home. But I got my mother on the phone and she said, "Oh, you've just been on the 9 o'clock news." And I thought, "Oh my God, what have I done?" But she said, "No, the article on the news was that you are the first band with a self-written song to make number one in America." Because at the time, Cashbox was perhaps the number one magazine.
Yeah.
Sure.
Although Billboard, was always there, and I think we made number 2 in Billboard. Did we, Carl? Was it number 3?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't remember exactly, but
Quite an achievement, though. I mean, because again, artists in those days, nowadays there's so much, the music industry, they don't even call it the music business anymore. It's an industry.
Yeah.
And people like Spotify making billions and paying artists, peppercorns, right?
I know.
But it wasn't that different in those days. The publishers and the Tin Pan Alley people and the labels, and as John Lennon used to call them when he used to come home and occasionally stay with us at Rembrandt in Wirral, he'd call them the suits. And he was like, well, where's the bloody money?
Yeah, I know.
It's
well,
crazy,
nothing's
isn't it?
changed. Nothing's changed.
No. I remember when I was about 12, Paul and Linda and Linda's daughter, stepdaughter Heather were home. And I was probably about 14 and Heather was probably 12 or so. And she'd struck up this very odd telephone and pen pal relationship with Michael Jackson. And he would call Heather every night from here in Los Angeles and they'd chit chat for hours. But we were like, better listen in on the call just in case, and it was all straight and above board. It was all right. But then Michael said one night, I was in the little phone booth under the stairs doing my homework, listening to make sure everything was kosher. And Michael said, is your dad home? I have a business question for him. And so I put my hand over the phone and said, Paul, Michael Jackson wants to talk to you, whatever. So Paul goes and picks up the extension. And I heard him say to Paul, he said, we're in the Jackson 5. By now it's like 1974. He said, our dad Joe gives us $45 a week. And I think there's probably more money there somewhere. I mean, good God. And then the next word the words that came out of Paul's mouth proved to be kind of ironic. He said, well, Michael, here's where you make money in the business. Buy other people's publishing.
Oh.
So he did.
Well, so he did.
And sold to the gentleman in the sparkly glove. Yes,
Oh my
absolutely.
God.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And when I think back now, I was sort of half listening, but I think, oh my God, Michael Jackson wound up owning the Beatles catalog. He was taking note, apparently.
Wow.
No good deed goes unpunished, they say, don't they? No good
That's right.
deed goes unpunished.
That's truly an example of that one.
That's
And when we
absolutely-
were watching the opening of the Winter Olympics last week, and when some Canadian people were coming on, they played the Maple Leaf Forever. And Ruth piped up and said, oh, Paul's just made a few bob. And Martin said, why? Ruth said he owns the publishing
Yeah, Paul owns
of a national anthem.
the Canadian national anthem.
Oh my God.
So every movie theater and every hockey game, when they're all standing to attention, cha-ching over at MPS. Mark?
Wow, that's brilliant. Oh,
Yeah. I'll fool me once, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So we're sort of digressing all over the
and
place, but
now in the late 60s, the Zombies are truly international. Tell us what happened when you played in the Philippines.
speaking of missing money,
Oh, Cole.
I'll go on.
You know,
I'll go on.
we thought we were going to I really didn't know where the Philippines was. I'll be honest with you. There's no internet. There's no way we could know anything about the Philippines, I suppose. We could look it up in an encyclopedia or something, but it sounded exotic. And in my mind, I thought we would be going to an exotic island, and we'd probably be playing in a hotel bar. But during the day, we could get on the beach and get a bit of sun. And so we agreed to go. From memory, we were getting £80 a night between us.
It took us 3 days to get there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it would take days.
And when we got off the plane at the other end, there were thousands of people at the airport. And, you know, Rod and I both said the same thing. There must be someone famous on this plane. They're all going nuts, you know. And we were looking over our shoulders. And it was us. We didn't know that we had like 7 or 8 records in the top 10 in the Philippines. We had no idea. And instead of in a bar to, I don't know, 50 people, we opened to 28,000 people in the Araneta Coliseum. And we played there for 10 nights. And it was the same sort of thing. On the Saturday night, it was 32,000. But it was roughly the same sort of thing. Remembering we're getting £80 a night between us, of which our manager took 20%, our agent, who happened to be the same person, took 10%. So that 30% of 80 quid, I can't work that out. 8 3 20,
it's about £59.50, but go on.
Something, whatever. And so we were playing to nearly 30,000 people and earning about a tenner each. And I think even we thought, hey, listen, there's something a bit wrong. You know, we weren't that good on the business side of things, but we spotted that one. We spotted that.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in Armenia, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, I mean, again, like I was saying, in those days, though, the music business was a secret for the suits, and the artists were literally just the puppets out there doing doing work, right? It's like Wall Street and Coots banking and private banking. It's just they speak a different language. You don't understand the contracts. You get your mum and dad to have a look at it. You're under 18. They sign it all in good faith. Yeah. You're literally just somebody's puppet, aren't you?
But they all thought that all these people like Tito Burns thought that rock and roll had about 3 years or 4 years, and they thought then it would all be over. And they couldn't imagine it lasting. And the irony is that it's lasted longer than any other form of popular music. It really has, and it shows no sign of calming down. You know.
Speaking of management, big thank you to Cindy and the team at the Rocks Management. They have been so great and responsive, getting us all dates to get together and whatever. So I loved in the end of your documentary when you're 2019, Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles inducts you into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Day late and a dollar short, might I say, but hey, you know, they gave it to you. And that you gave the Cindy and everybody at the Rocks Management a shout out. That is so rare to find musicians these days who have management that they love and trust.
Yes. Yeah,
I think that's what Rod said. It's the first time for either of us that we had a management company that was honest and understood us and supported us. And they've been wonderful. I mean, they've been managing us for about 10 or 12 years, I think, and before that they were involved with our agency as well. But so it's been a long and wonderful relationship with them. It's been great.
That's fabulous. And you know,
I wish we'd had them in the 60s. If we'd had them in the 60s, it would have been another story. Anyway, there we are. You learn from experience.
We recorded an awful lot of albums, some of them which are, I think they're quite brilliant, and then they're not known at all because until the last, I would say, the last 6 or 7 years, they were never publicised. They were never publicised, and I think it's such a shame. But they are, they are starting to release them. So I hope in time some of the tracks people will get to know.
Right. Yeah. Well, you're for the people watching who tuning in, you're thezombiesmusic.com, and where the name of the documentary and how to see it has been scrolling continuously throughout the broadcast. So please, do go check those out. But So it's back after the Philippines, then it's back to the UK, but then the label dropped you. You got £1,000. You went to Abbey Road. You were lucky enough to work with Jeff Emmerich and Peter Vince and create Odessey and Oracle. Now, Colin, you've talked about having a tight budget and a time clock, but Abbey Road were notorious for having these bloody like British Rail station clocks right in your face. And
Yes.
Tick, tick. Oh,
I mean, how do you
being
find
creative, yeah.
yeah, how do you remain creative and you can see that the money's ticking down?
Yeah.
Well, it does get a bit strange sometimes. I've told this story many times, but when Time of the Season was it was the last track that was written for the album, and it's the last track recorded for the album, and money was running out, and I was doing the lead vocal. It was an afternoon session, I remember that, and I got one of those clocks you just reminded me was right in front of me, and underneath it, just in case I didn't realize money was running out, there was a big red light that was on because we were recording. And because the song had only just been written, I wasn't phrasing it quite right. So Rod was in the control room with the rest of the band, a lot of Abbey Road people, engineers in there. But he's talking to me through the cans and saying, no, sing this phrase on the beat and then push that phrase and so on. And I'm watching the clock ticking. I knew we were running out of money. Rod was kindly coaching me through these last few minutes of the album, and my heart was going faster and faster. My blood pressure is going up, and in the end, my language just got the better of me. So I was shouting at Rod with the worst language, and eventually, I think I encouraged a response from him that was in the same sort of tone as I was giving him. And so, at the time when I'm singing, it's a time of the season for loving. We're going, bloody sing it on the beat. Push that. Come on, you can do it. I said to him, if you're so bloody clever, you get in here and you sing it. He said, you're the lead singer. You stand there till you get it right. And this is all going on while we're singing this song about the beauty of love. It got a little bit, just a little bit fraught. We did it. Just with seconds to go. We finished. And all right.
Now, was there a story of like one of your 3-hour sessions? You're in the middle of something, and then they had to come in and get a piano for another studio or something?
Yeah, they did.
It was on a song called Changes. It's the only song that we all sang harmony on. So even Hugh, our drummer, sang a harmony. There's a 5-piece harmony. And we were all around the piano because we had all our little harmony cribs so we could see what was happening. And Rod could play us our note. So we're standing around this piano. The aforementioned red light is on. That means don't come in. We're singing. It's live. And 2 guys came in. The guys who move things around used to have long brown coats, didn't they, Rod? And these 2 guys came in. We're singing. And they just got hold of the piano and moved it into another studio, not quietly and not quickly. Sort of, oh, to me, Harry, go on. We're actually singing. And we kept going. I'd like to think that we kept that take. I'd like to think that you can hear those 2 guys on it, but I don't. I'm kidding myself, really. But it did happen. They moved the piano while we were singing.
Unbelievable.
It was a wonderful, concoction of or a wonderful mix of people that were very, very, like Jobsworths.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you had wonderful invention in the studio at the same time. So you had the 2, I mean, because it had been going since Elgar.
Right. Yes.
Played in the 30s, So and they were at the forefront of the invention and the use of new stuff. But at the same time, they had this very,
Well, that's it. They were time watchers. When we were recording, we had to record from 10 till 1. You had to stop, otherwise come in and move the piano, which is what they did. And then you were from 2 to 5, and then from 7 to 10, and you absolutely had to stop on time, or else they'd just pull the plug on you. But at the same time, they had these inspirational figures who were working there, who were absolutely the top of their profession, and of course they had to put up with all this as well. It was a great contradiction where you've got the Jobsworths and then you've got these wonderful artists who were actually recording engineers, but they're artists in their own right as well.
It's rather Python-esque, isn't it? When you think about it, it's sort of like if you put Monty Python in charge of the German railway.
Yeah, it was a bit like that. It was a bit like that.
All your left brain creative people, and then your right brain bean counters with the stopwatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I can't imagine how that all worked, but boy, it did. But yes, Rod, you're right. It did go back to Elgar. I think most people associate, you hear Abbey Road, you think the Beatles, it's the iconic crossing, but it's been at the forefront of technology and recording for a long, long time.
Really.
One of the things I loved in your documentary was when you and Chris went back into the studio and were able to pull up tracks that weren't used, or little pieces like a cello that didn't make the mix and things like that. You think about the incredible archives that exist from the 60s of all of those things that made it to tape but didn't make it to radio. Boy, oh boy.
Wow.
It's incredible. There's a whole nother film in that, I think. So we're now we've got moments to go. We've just done Time of the Season.
Yeah, it's hard for us fans to imagine that you just recorded Time of the Season, yet the band decided to break up. What led to that?
Well, it wasn't a hit in America until was it 3 years later, Cole?
It was a period. I don't think it was quite that long myself, but it was a substantial period of time before it actually hit. And it was never a hit in the UK. I think it's the only country in the world.
Yeah.
Time of the Season was never a hit.
Yeah.
So there was a big gap, and particularly the non-writers. So myself, Paul Atkinson, and Hugh Grundy, we had absolutely no money, none. And I think that and an apparent lack of success led us to think towards maybe it's time that, we're all good pals and everything, but maybe it's time to think about new projects. So there just didn't seem to be any interest in the band. Now, after the band finished, we realized that the Zombies always had a hit somewhere in the world. But you learned these things so late because there was no internet. And so it was too late for us. And I think it was just a sort of a natural progression for the band to want to go out and get involved in new projects.
But Chris and I were very lucky because as the writers, we had publishers who were actually very honest. And so we got all the publishing money and all the writing money. But people like Col and Hugh Grundy and Paul Atkinson, Paul was getting married and he said, "No, I'm going to have to leave." He said, "Because I'm getting married and I've actually got no money." So we moved on. But Chris and I wanted to keep with Colin as well. Right. And we wanted to produce his 1 year album.
Right.
And we got a deal immediately because with Time of the Season being a hit, Clive Davis gave us pretty much what we wanted.
Thanks to Al Cooper, right? Al Cooper was the one who turned
Al Cooper. He was
It was. They weren't interested in Odessey and Oracle in the States. And Al Cooper came to London and he bought like 100 albums, and he just said, "This one just shines out." And it was his first day working at CBS, and he went into Clive Davis's office. It's very brave of him, and he said, "Whatever it costs, we have to get Odessey and Oracle." And Clive Davis says, "We already own Odessey and Oracle. It was a CBS album. We already own it, and we were going to pass on it. We weren't going to release it." And Al just fought for it. And he got the album released, and eventually he was responsible for getting Time of the Season released as well. So without Al Cooper, there would be no Zombies story. We owe him so much.
Right. Wow. But in the middle there was, Colin, there was a bloke called Neil, wasn't there?
There was. When the band finished, it's rather a sad tale, actually. When the band finished, I had to get a job. I mean, I was sitting around at home. The phone wasn't ringing. So I thought, well, I'll just have to get a job. So I phoned lots of people. And the first offer I got of a job was in a big office in the middle of London, which people always say, and it was an insurance office. It didn't matter what it was a job. And I actually managed to secure an income from this job that was less than my train fare and my rent. So I was actually, why I was doing it, I don't know. I was working at a loss. Anyway,
It was a bit like the old times, Colin.
A bit like in zombies.
I was just going to ask Colin. I was just going to ask Colin: is a pattern beginning to emerge for you here?
I know. For most of my life, it has been like that until recently. Anyway, when Time of the Season was a hit, I was in the burglary department and the Sun Alliance and London Insurance Company. And I got a phone call from a guy called Mike Hurst, who was a very successful producer at the time. He just recorded the early Cat Stevens records when Cat Stevens first started, and a lot of other hits as well. And I was aware of that. And he said, look, you should be recording, not working in the burglary department. And I agreed with him. And but I was a little bit reluctant to get back into the business because it had ended not very happily. So he said, I'll record some tracks in Olympic Studios. That's the studio that the Stones used to record in. And you come along after your day in the insurance office and put some vocals on these tracks. And that's what we did. And somewhere along the line, my name got changed to Neil MacArthur. I have no idea why. I don't remember any story with that. So I did make some records with Neil MacArthur. And the first one, we re-recorded She's Not There. Again, I don't know why. I was just trying things out, and it was released as a single and it was a small hit. And I was back in the music business and it was no more Mr. Insurance for me. No. I was out there singing again.
I always loved that Neil MacArthur. Thought he was great.
My favourite.
Yeah, he was all right. It was all right, but he had to go, I'm afraid.
Those rugged Aaron Polanex sweaters were what did it for me.
Yeah, bless him, Neil. He served his purpose.
Bless Neil, absolutely he did. So in the meantime there, while Colin's working for the Upside Down Egg Timer financially, Rod, you and Chris White, you carry on because you've got your songwriting royalties and production company and all of that stuff. And then you just reached back out to Colin and sort of said, well, let's do it again. And that's where one year came from. Why is it called 1 year?
Well, it took a year, yeah.
Yeah, because it took a year. The Zombies also used to record very, very fast, as we've been saying before, often because of limited studio time. We would record extremely fast. So to spend a whole year recording an album seemed remarkable to me. And I think to some extent it was due to Rod was working with Argent, and so he was away quite a lot, and he was co-producing with Chris White. I think that's one of the reasons why it took a year. We wanted Rod to be there. But it struck me as so bizarre. We'd spent a year recording an album. I think people spend much longer now, but at that time, it seemed bizarre, and that's why it's called 1 year.
Well, Rod, you would have been busy on the road with Argent. Hold Your Head Up was an absolute international smash hit, and so you probably had to take time out of production to go on the road and balance the two things. And then, your wife and your lovely kids. It must have been really, really hard to pull yourself in pieces.
It was actually, and actually one of my regrets is the fact that I was away for so much of the time when the kids were really little.
Yeah.
And I can't go back and do anything about that now. But that's one of the great regrets of my life, actually.
Yeah.
But I was, yeah. You're right. But again, we didn't have managers by that time who were trying to
guide you,
fleece us, but they just weren't very good. That's why it was so brilliant to get Chris and Cindy, who understood where we were and what to do about it. And I remember the first day when we decided to join them, Cindy said to Chris, we'll get them into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Chris thought, oh dear. I don't know if we'd, because we weren't really very well known then, but then we gradually built and built and built. And they did, they got us in 2019, we were in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That's absolutely incredible. So how did the connection with Denny Lane and the wonderful Say You Don't Mind song that he wrote, because Denny again is remembered for being part of Wings. That's sort of first on his resume, isn't it? But when you think he wrote for the Moody Blues, and he wrote for Colin Blunstone. How did you guys know each other?
Well, we knew him when he was in the Moody Blues. In particular, the Moody Blues had a house in London. I can't remember exactly where it was. I think it was in West London. and we went to a big party there, and that's when we first met Denny, and we followed his career after that, and we were aware of that record. And in fact, the Zombies, before they split, which was in 1967, we used to end our show with that song, a rock and roll version of Say You Don't Mind. So we knew the song, and we were getting towards the end of one year, and somebody came up with the idea, what about that Denny Lane song? It's such a great song. And we tried to record it as a rock and roll song to start with, and it didn't really work. And then another suggestion was, we'd been working with a wonderful string arranger called Chris Gunning. Why don't we involve Chris Gunning in this song? And he came up with such an imaginative arrangement of the tune, and it was a 21-piece string orchestra, huge orchestra, into Abbey Road Studio 3. And the thought of it ever being a single never crossed my mind. A 21-piece string orchestra, how could that ever be a single? But it was, and it was in the UK especially, it was a huge hit. I think it was in some countries in Europe, but I know it wasn't a hit in America. So you have to take my word for it. Anyone in America, it was a hit, I promise you.
Well, the thing is too, at that time, in that sort of, in the zeitgeist of the time, you had Queen, of course, using orchestral stuff, and the dear departed, our old buddy John Miles, and the epic Music Was My First Love, and then also ELO.
Oh, that's right. Your album, 1 year, that led you to touring with the Electric Light Orchestra, didn't it? How on earth did you get both bands and all the musicians and crew on stage?
Well, with great difficulty, because there were other bands on the bill as well. But, I had a rock and roll band and a string quartet. ELO was a big band, and there were other bands as well. And it actually came to a climax for me at the Brighton Dome, which is quite a prestigious place. And I just signed to CBS, and I just signed a new management company. So they were all there to watch me for the first time. And as I went to go on stage, I realized that all the amps had blocked me off completely from the stage. I couldn't physically get on the stage. And the band started playing the first song, and I had no choice but to climb up a mountain of amplifiers and then put leg over at the top, come down bum first, on the other side. So the first sight that CBS and my manager had of me playing live on stage was my bum coming over the top of the amplifiers, climbing down the other side. So I tried to do it with as much grace as I could, but it was an unorthodox entry, to say the least. So you're quite right. There was a lot of equipment on the stage at that time.
Well, we've just made TeaFlix history. Colin Blunstone just said leg over
and bum.
Leg over and bum in one sentence.
Is that what they mean when they say this arrangement is open-ended?
Open-ended arrangement. Oh dear, oh dear.
Keep the party clean now. This is a family show.
Indeed. So, yeah, and wanted to go back to the documentary, which I said it's on Amazon Prime. It's, do it.
I know.
Just buy it, get it.
Documentary
You'll watch it
is
1,000
absolute.
times.
I've watched it twice in the last day, and there's all sorts of other people like your new fans, Post Malone, Dave Grohl, Harry Styles. Oh, I love Harry Styles, and Phineas even. Yeah, how did that all happen?
Well, how does it? It must feel very gratifying to see the next generation,
range
especially like
of-
Phineas. Who is, for those who don't know, who live under a rock, Billie Eilish's brother and producer. It must just blow your minds, right?
Mm.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he covered Time of the Season, didn't he, Rod? That's the sort of story there.
Yeah.
He was playing in Los Angeles when I was there, and so it was arranged that I would go to the concert and I sang Time of the Season with him. And he was most gracious. He was a lovely guy, and obviously a very talented musician and producer, and invited me on stage, and I sang it with him. It was a wonderful experience. It's great when you get some kind of validation from these wonderful current artists, and we've been just very fortunate.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, no, that's
well deserved.
Absolutely. And even at some point in the film they talk about you're somewhere in we call him Poodlehead in this house. Where's his picture up there? He's got a big massive white hair now. Sir Brian May popped his head round the door and said something, didn't he?
He did. He was, I think he's very interested in seeing us because, he was aware of the Zombies and very aware of Argent as well. I think Queen were quite influenced by Argent, but he's another great bloke, really, really down to earth, lovely guy. It was great to see him there.
I have no idea how he and I ended up on a text chain years ago for something, and then when he was in and out of LA and going to Vegas to open the We Will Rock You musical. And I wound up curating a whole list of vegetarian and vegan restaurants for him because we deal with a lot of chefs and foodie people. And he was so grateful, and he invited Martin and I to come out and do the whole VIP thing in Vegas at the opening of the We Will Rock You musical. And we show up and we get the tickets and everything. And right in front of us, there's one of the executive producer investors is Robert De Niro is sitting right in front of us. And I'm like, that's Robert De Niro, So afterwards we go up to the pool and the VIP thing and what have you. And Brian says to me and to Martin, he says, hang on, let me go get a friend of mine. He's a huge Beatle fan. He won't believe that Paul's stepsister is, stood standing right here. So we're stood like muggins. He brings his friend over and it's Robert De Niro. He turns around and what do? I mean, talk about open mouth, insert foot. I go, you're good, you. And he looks at me and he goes, nobody's ever said that to me before. I just wanted to die.
I know.
I don't know.
Did I say that in my out loud voice?
Yeah.
Oh
My God. I just wanted to die. But he was very sweet. And it was, you're right. Brian is, he didn't know me from Adam, but because
Eve.
I had helped him navigate. It was back in the day when everything in Vegas was lobster and steak and, big steak houses and this and that and the other. And vegan and vegetarian restaurants were they were off the beaten track, off the strip in little strip malls and mom and pop food trucks and stuff. So yeah, that was how we connected, was over food. But what a gentleman. Absolutely. But again, Queen's music wouldn't have evolved in the way it did without you guys and Chris and the rest of the band and the songwriting.
There you go. See?
So thank you.
Well, it's difficult to know, isn't it, really? But it's nice to play. It's nice to think that you might have played a small part in the evolution of some of the more modern bands.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. And the audience is just going wild. What an honor to hear. Yeah. Do you have a funny closing anecdote about obviously one of my big heroes, Brian Wilson, when you did a bunch of touring and stuff with the Beach Boys? Were there any Brian Wilson moments that stick out in your head?
Well, Brian was speaking to Paul, and when Paul wanted to do his very, very final concert, and he knew he only
Atkinson, Paul Atkinson.
Paul Atkinson. Sorry, he had a few weeks to live, and that was it. And he said, "I want my kids to actually believe that I was in a band." So he said, "Would you guys all come over and just do one final concert with me?" And it was, oh my God, it was
very emotional. Very emotional.
It was at the House of Blues on Sunset, right?
Yes, it was the House of Blues, and we all turned up, and it was so moving. But Brian said, "Paul," he said, "I'll play whatever you like. I'll play whatever you like." And Paul said, "Well, would you play Don't Worry Baby?" And he said, "Well, I don't do that song." He said, "But I'll do it for you."
Oh.
And when he sang that song, and Paul had a catheter. Is it
like a morphine, like a drip?
Yeah. And he sat down and played, and the place, was absolutely silent, and then went completely crazy afterwards. But Brian, he did "Don't Worry Baby," and it was just marvelous, and it was so moving.
Well, I mean, it must have been for Helen and for Lucy just to be there and hear that tribute to Paul, because he didn't stay with us much longer after that. He was gone in a few weeks.
It was weeks. Yeah. On a lighter note, that we toured with Brian Wilson a few years ago. I think it might have been just before COVID, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But anyway, one way or another, I was asked to sing God Only Knows
And
with
me.
Rod Wilson and the band. Sorry, and Rod as well. We both were. I'm so sorry. And you know, I think Paul has actually said it is the most beautiful contemporary song that's ever written. So to say that there was a little bit of pressure on, it was at the Greek Theatre in Los Angeles, and I was standing right next to Brian Wilson singing God Only Knows. So I walk on stage, I go right up to the mic stand, and I could see from 3 or 4 feet away there was no mic on the mic stand.
Oh shit.
Now there's 7,500 people in the Greek, so it's sold out, however many people that is. I'm standing right next to Brian Wilson trying to sing one of the most beautiful songs ever written, and there's no mic. And it seemed a very long time that I was standing there just going to people, help, help. And they managed to get a mic out there, and then we started. But I'll never forget that. The night I nearly didn't sing God Only Knows with Brian Wilson.
Yes.
Oh my God. And the night you nearly sang Help, which was the wrong song.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys, for taking, I know it's getting very late and you're past your dinner time, for taking so much time. Your website, The Zombies Music, is going around and around. I encourage everyone to go buy the Blu-ray DVD or buy it on Amazon. The documentary is just absolutely incredible. Now, what you don't know is that Madam here, she's got 8 books also on Amazon. And one of them is called Mrs. McCartney's Liverpool Limericks and Other Random Irish Haikus. So before we read the limerick, big thank you to Rod's sister Roz and her husband Richard Olaf for hooking this whole thing up. They're watching. I can see them in the comments. And thank you. So if you're sitting comfortably, we will begin, in the words of Enid Blyton. Are you ready, madam?
Always.
You count it up for the rhythm.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
There once were 2 lads from St Albans who've wowed us in various bands. With the zombies they rose with their tight vocal flows and thrilled us with rich soaring anthems.
Anthems.
Albans, whatever.
Yes, okay.
Then Colin sang sweet on his own, while Argent let bold chords be shown.
I'm not doing very well.
No, should we do that again?
Yeah, go on.
She hasn't had enough wine.
No.
So, verse 2.
Okay.
And a 1, 2, 3. Then Colin sang sweet on his own, while Argent let bold chords be shown. Through solo acclaim, they strengthened their flame. Now back to the zombies they've flown. Ta-da!
Sorry about that. Been wonderful. Thanks, boys.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. Thank you.
At the Rocks Management. This will be on our YouTube channel, McCartney Studios, and it will also be on the McCartney Times at mccartney.com. Like, share, send it to your friends, and go check out thezombiesmusic.com and find out what's next for these wonderful, talented, iconic, sweet, generous, beautiful gentlemen. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Very much. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to TeaFlix, and check out Dr. Angie's books, Organic Teas and CBD, at mrsmccartneysteas.com. Toodle pip!